Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Peter Jennings, and I go by CSURAM88 across the daily fantasy industry. And pumped to be back here again at FantasyLabs doing a lineup review. Have a very special tournament to review to the $5 million main event Millionaire Maker, which was $444 to enter. You can see here there's a little bit of overlay and certainly a very fun tournament to compete in. I originally planned to max it out and actually had a couple events happen throughout the week that minimize some of my time, and I wanted to make sure if I put 150 in, I felt really good about my process, and so it ended up working out where I just didn't do that. But a very exciting tournament. Did get some entries in. I'm going to review my best lineup and my worst lineup. So coming over here, my best lineup scored 198 points. Not too bad of a result here. Honestly, I think I had 28 entries, and I had some teams I felt pretty good about. Some teams I wasn't as thrilled about, but we'll talk about that in a second. So this team was Ben Roethlisberger, David Johnson, Sproles, Jordy Nelson, Eli Rogers, Albert Wilson, Delaney Walker, Antonio Brown, and the Jaguars D. And for the most part, I feel good about all these plays. Obviously I went with a big Ben stack. I had a ton of Eli Rogers. I like Ben, Eli Rogers, and Antonio Brown. And Le'Veon Bell. I liked all the Steelers stacks and had some rotations of that. Then David Johnson obviously was a chalk. I used some Ezekiel Elliott. In hindsight, I wish I would have used more, obviously, just from a game theory perspective, but I certainly don't mind being heavy on David Johnson. He was the highest projected player that was in my model all year. So I don't feel bad about the process there. And Darren Sproles I had all over. He had 10 targets, 8 catches. I mean, really, this is what you're hoping for with Darren Sproles. Kind of is this type of opportunity. Obviously, he could have produced a little bit more in terms of potentially a touchdown or more yards, but certainly can't complain at the price tag of $4,300. And then I went with Jordy Nelson, who propelled this lineup up. Had him a good bit. That was a receiver I took on the Green Bay side. And then Albert Wilson, who I had a ton of as well. I was really bullish on him for his price at $3,300. Thought there was a lot of upside there in the specific spot against Carolina. Been bad against the pass, and just didn't work out with Albert Wilson. Definitely don't mind the play at the ownership, and certainly would go back and take him again, even with the poor performance. It's one of those things where he was a really good punt receiver, in my opinion. Everyone who was punting at receiver was using Inman, who I used as well, and I thought Albert Wilson would be low owned and had similar upside to Inman. Delaney Walker went off here, had a good bit of him, which I would add a little bit more. Also had the nice kind of little game stack, not game stack, but at least back and forth with Delaney Walker and Jordy Nelson. Antonio Brown, who had a huge game, and my goodness, that garbage time or that last play certainly changed things for people. And the Jaguars D, who was the punt D that I liked, and that just didn't work out. So scrolling through, I mean, you can see I had some teams do okay. I had some teams kind of middle of the pack. Not really disappointed in my teams, but certainly wish I could go back in time and make more teams and do a little bit better job. This team I actually have some issues with. Again, I went with Brady stack here, same running backs. Cole Beasley, who I ended up using a decent bit. I thought that was a nice contrarian play. I was hoping that game could shoot out and he would pay off. That was paying up to be contrarian with Cole Beasley to a degree. He's kind of in that no man's. There weren't that many receiver options at 5,400 or in the mid 5K range, and I thought it was just kind of an awkward roster construction standpoint for people to get him in. So I decided to go with him. Talked about Dontrell Inman. He was 25% owned versus Albert Wilson at 2.6. Jordan Matthews, Gronk, Edelman, and Jaguars D again. So went with the Brady double stack, which obviously didn't work out. The one issue I have with this lineup is Sproles and Jordan Matthews here together. I did like Jordan Matthews and Sproles a lot. I like the Eagles, too, to score a lot of points against Atlanta. The games with the Falcons this year have been really high scoring and just didn't pan out, but probably shouldn't have the negative correlation here. And I talked about this in other lineup reviews. In general, you don't want position players on the same team that aren't correlated. Maybe I could get lucky with a Darren Sproles to Jordan Matthews touchdown like the Marco Murray to Delaney Walker, but basically they're almost always going to be 99 point whatever percent plus negatively correlated. That's the one thing that I need to get a little bit better with. I did like them a lot, and I like the Eagles, so in some situations this can work out, but I think I need to get away from it more in tournaments since it's happening a good bit to me. Let's look at the results, though, of the finals here. So let's see here. Congrats to ZBB123. And then some familiar faces, Sahil Sud and Makasupa, two good friends, two great guys in the industry. I'm sure if you play a lot of DFS, you recognize both these names. Really great guys overall, which is it's always good to see good people do well. And obviously, they're some of the best in the world. Sahil plays more DFS than anyone. And he had 150 entrants in this. And if you look at Sahil's performance, it was incredible. I mean, he had a ton of teams in the top 100 and just really nailed this tournament. So that's harder than it looks to do. And a lot of people will say, oh, it's because he had 150 lineups. If you look at all of his lineups, he was on all the right guys and really had a nice distribution of players. But let's take a look at his top line. Oh, we'll take a look at the winning lineup first. It's crazy. It's a 0.1 difference, too. Marcus Mariota, Le'Veon Bell, Procise, which was the big winner at the end, Antonio Brown, Tyreek Hill, J.J. Nelson, Delaney Walker, Jordy Nelson, and Rams D. So pretty impressive that it won with a dud with J.J. Nelson. Basically, this team had a little negative correlation with Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, but those are two guys that you obviously can always take. They're two guys who are consistently in cash games as well. But Tyreek Hill, I've been talking up all year. Freak Hill, I wish I would have had more exposure to him. Definitely a good game. I went the Albert Wilson route. A little disappointed in myself for that. J.J. Nelson, I actually thought was a really good play. A lot of big upside, especially in tournaments. Ended up being very heavily owned. Delaney Walker, Jordy Nelson, and Rams D. So great team here. And congrats to ZBB123. Sahil's team, another good team, obviously. Mariota, Chris Ivory, DeMarco Murray, Antonio Brown, Stephon Diggs, Kendall Wright, Delaney Walker, Ezekiel Elliott, and Jaguars D. So a huge bump up. Imagine the end of the game here for Sahil. He has Antonio Brown, obviously catch the touchdown. Then Ezekiel Elliott score a touchdown to put the game away, and then gets the garbage time. Antonio Brown, last play, just huge catch. So he actually got two catches there at the end. So congrats to Sahil. Certainly must have been a big sweat for him with all the teams in contention. And then Makasupa went with the Roethlisberger, Melvin Gordon, Sproles, Doug Baldwin, Antonio Brown, Tyrell Williams, Delaney Walker, CJ Procise team. Very good team. Again, a lot of these spots end up with some negative correlation, like Doug Baldwin and CJ Procise. Not sure if there's any swapping here, but certainly an interesting roster construction and a really, really good team overall. Makasupa, definitely one of the best players in the industry, and certainly if you're looking to review lineups, taking a look at his makes a lot of sense. So congrats to everyone who had a good finish here. Not my best week. If you follow my content, was totally wrong on Alshon Jeffrey. Came out that he got suspended for PEDs. Certainly wasn't a performance-enhancing performance that he had out there. There was no performance-enhancing in terms of his fantasy production, but interesting that he's suspended in a contract year. He's definitely costing himself a lot of money, and I definitely missed on that and Cutler last week. So moving on to Week 11, excited for that. And as always, looking to see more FantasyLabs subscribers at the top of the leaderboard.